Welcome back to Reporter's Diary, and I'm your host, Gitanjali Divakar. Most often, reporters are said to be mere storytellers. That isn't true. A reporter is often the liaison between the one who becomes the story and the one who listens to the story. Most often, reporters are entrusted with the task of recording the rise and fall of greatness. Today, we will be speaking with yet another veteran journalist. Giriprakash has been associated with the BusinessLine for over 2 decades. During his term with the publication, he has also reported on many controversial stories, including the rise and fall of Kingfisher, as well as its owner, Vijay Mallaya. His experiences were very interesting, and in today's discussion, he tells us more about what it took for him to get this far and what aspiring journalists should focus on in the days ahead. Thank you, Giri Prakash, for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure to have you on our show. Can you tell us briefly as to how you started out with BusinessLine?
I was at Business Standard before joining BusinessLine, and we launched the Bangalore edition of Business Standard, and I was there between '98 and 2003. Before '98, I was in Delhi, and so this opportunity came up for me in BusinessLine. I was very keen to cover aviation and automobile industries, and that was booming at that time. So there was this great opportunity to. So I got that opportunity and joined BusinessLine.
We remember Bangalore as a very quiet, quaint, peaceful, non-polluted area. From that to what it is today, how has that transition been so far?
It still rains very heavily in Bangalore. So I don't know what environment has done, but I know that you want to take out your family in the evening, there is this rain, which is always a challenge. it used to happen when I used to travel from Delhi to Bangalore, and my uncles and aunts would want to take me out to the shops and all that, and you just sit at home.
Yeah, but if you're looking at on the other side, when you see Bangalore is now the world's most popular, one among the world's most popular IT hubs, from that quiet place which had some activity. How do you think that has sort of changed industry at large as far as India is concerned? How has Bangalore? What is Bangalore's contribution be to?
So there was always this huge potential that Bangalore had. It just that it realized its potential, unlike other cities which haven't realized the potential.
Okay.
So the IT hub was waiting to happen. Why? Because of huge talent there. The engineering colleges in Bangalore already existed. The public sector undertakings already existed. And innovation, cutting edge technology, and Indian Institute of Science, and all that was happening all the time.
We also had Infosys and Wipro that finally came in, didn't we?
Yeah, so there was really talent out there. So there was no other option. For example, Texas Instruments came to Bangalore, and it was supposed to go to Chennai, but somehow, because of the politicians here, they managed to get them here. And the chief minister said, "There's this huge land out there in Whitefield. Go ahead and build your own, technology center there." And they found ready talent. They could just go to any of the campuses and get that talent.
So I think it was equipped for this sort of growth, for technology-driven growth.
You don't find that in any other cities.
Okay.
This huge talent pool that exists in Bangalore, it only exists in Bangalore. Okay. Because of the culture of very good education here. And South India being there are far less aggressive people, and they are not businessmen at heart.
Yeah.
Very middle class.
Yeah.
They want to be employed rather than be employers. Correct. Now you can't find that in a Bombay or a Delhi, where entrepreneurship is overrides everything else.
Right.
So here, all these things actually existed and helped a lot of companies to start, recruiting them, hiring them.
If you look at the aviation sector particularly, there have always been multiple issues. Like you've seen what has happened to Jet Airways, Kingfisher and Air had to bid adieu to the space. And we've also seen how jet fuel prices have also had an impact on the sector as well. What do you think could be a favorable solution to an issue such as this?
You can't do much about fuel prices. It not only affects Indian aviation sector, Indian domestic airlines, but also international airlines. Um, so nothing much can be done about it. But what the government can do is that realize the potential of the airline sector and see to it that the aviation turbine fuel, the taxes are now should be part of the GST. That's something that they should do that and should actually lower the taxes. If you lower the taxes, if you see that each city or like say each metro has another airport which is exclusively for the low fare airlines with landing charges, with a whole lot of airport charges and stuff like that at a far lower priced or lower rates. There will be a real boom in the airline sector. How much can the railways or how much can the vehicle industry can take that kind of load? Airline sector will actually lead to far more economic growth. It will revive a whole lot of airports which are there, for example, in smaller towns and all that. It's just that no plane comes by there. So.
Giris, I'm so sorry about this. We might have to re-record a particular portion of our discussion because I think the framing was a little wrong. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
So actually, the part that we'll have to probably re-record is your introduction as to how you started out at BusinessLine and how you transitioned from IT to aviation. We can do that towards the end. That's fine, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So when you mentioned Kingfisher, we have the ever popular story related to Vijay Mallaya. And if I'm not mistaken, that particular, you followed it up closely and it was eventually even converted into an episode of a particular television series, if I'm not mistaken.
So, no, I actually wrote a book. And that is now being made into a web series on one of the OTT platforms.
Excellent. So, can you tell us a bit about that as to what sort of challenges you faced in the bargain? Like when you were following up the story, what is it that really drove you to just keep a close tab of the whole issue?
So when I was in Delhi, I used to work with Pioneer at that time, and then I was handed over this aviation sector.
When was this?
In 95, 96.
Okay.
I was, so somebody quit in the Pioneer and that person was doing the aviation sector. So I came in and they gave me that thing, that sector. So I started following it. That was a time when the government launched the open skies policy, allowing a lot of private sector participation in the airline industry. So Jet Airways, Damania, East West Airlines, all of them were launched at that time. So I was there at that time, and there were two different airlines as far as the national flag carriers were concerned, Indian Airlines and Air India. Yeah. So right from the beginning, I was sort of tracked that. And then I joined Reuters, and I was, I think they had a position for an airline specialist. Correct. So for the first time, Reuters decided to have one. So I was part of that as well. So tracked the aviation sector, the domestic aviation sector for the international audience. Then I came to Bangalore, and obviously my editors wanted me to continue with that. And business standard, and IT was there, and you had to cover it. So it's not like you couldn't, it was there right there in front of you, and you had to cover it. So that was part of it. But then when I transitioned to BusinessLine, I was only doing automobile and airlines.
No, but the fact of the matter is, an issue such as the Kingfisher Airlines, Vijay Mallaya, very heated topics. People really wanted to know what's happening, why it happened, especially when Kingfisher had started out in a very nice way. I remember people saying Kingfisher, as in the tagline was Kingfisher is like your home or something on those lines. So from that to what it is today, where there are stories of cases that cease to end. how has that experience been, to be very honest?
Kingfisher Airlines, it has everything to do with Mallaya's flamboyance, right? He
Okay.
got big, and he wanted. Uh, I mean, he had the heart in the right place. Let me put it that way.
When you say heart in the right place, what do you mean by that?
What I meant was that he through him came out the personality of Kingfisher Airlines as well. Like in a sense, whatever he was, one could see it in Kingfisher Airlines.
But isn't it kind of ironic that now that he is not there, Kingfisher also isn't there? And it's sort of like a, how do you say? It's kind of like a pretty sad ending to a very happy tale.
Yeah, that's Vijay Mallaya.
Have you had an opportunity? I mean, have you ever had an opportunity to interact with him, where, amidst all the confusion?
Oh yeah, I know him. I know him very well. Actually, I know him very well. I've spent a lot of time with him. Series of interviews. I remember the UBCT when they announced a change of guard for the RCB. Kumble took over as a captain. So we had this press conference at UBCT at 7 p.m. So this man turns up at around 8:39, as usual, and and then he announced to everybody, and all that happened. Then he called me and said, "Let's have a chat." And this was at 12 o'clock in the night. All right.
Okay.
So I had to call up my wife and tell her. I will wait.
So you're saying as a personality, he was very, you had fun covering the whole story, to be.
Yeah. I mean, he was. I mean, it was a virtual monologue till 3 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
12 to 3, and he drinks like it looks like he has got a stomach. It's like a stomach with steel. It keeps going in. He smokes and drinks and smokes and drinks, and the entire room is full of smoke and all that. It's like he's that kind of a guy, and he speaks a lot, and he talked about the strategy for Kingfisher Airlines, about RCB and stuff like that. I mean, this is one of the memories of.
But were there any challenges? What were the challenges that you had to face when you were covering a story, especially when the whole story went, not in favor of Mallaya? Mallaya was there was Mallaya in the UK, there was Mallaya who was wanted by authorities in India. What are the challenges that you faced when you had to take it to the next stage?
The challenge was that you felt sorry for him at one level. At the same time, it's like a Greek tragedy playing out. Greek tragedy is about how you actually build up the whole thing and then bring it down yourself. So something like that. It ended up like that.
So you're saying that you were there when it all started, and you were like the person, and then suddenly when it collapsed, it was your job again to tell the world it's collapsing.
Yeah. He made real big blunders. He should have never bought Air Deccan, and Captain Gopinath should have never sold Air Deccan.
Why do you think they shouldn't have sold? I mean, Air Deccan shouldn't have been bought by Kingfisher.
It's like a luxury brand. By buying a very very common but popular kind of brand, which is like, say, more for the common man than for its positioning is quite different, right? So when the everything about the business is that you should be able to handle a portfolio which you're good at. But if you're able to, if you buy something which is commonplace, which is for the popular segment, which is for the common man, and then include it as part of your portfolio which only consists of luxury brands, what happens is that you don't understand that culture at all. You don't understand that culture. And therefore it becomes much more difficult for you to actually manage the whole thing, the entire product portfolio. And at some level, one starts getting eating into the other. Okay. Then that's exactly what happened with Kingfisher and Air Deccan. There was a whole lot of confusion. He initially decided that he will have two airlines, one low fare and another, full service carrier. Right? It's like Vistara and say a SpiceJet or an Indigo. Okay, they are at different price points.
Correct.
Right? They are at different price points, and they should be allowed to be at different price points. Unfortunately for him, what happened was the fuel prices went up at that time, and then there were other airlines which started competing. For example, Indigo started competing in the same space. What is the problem with the aviation industry in India? It's that you could be low cost, but you still have to pay the same amount of money that a full-fledged carrier has to pay when it comes to landing, it comes to airport charges and stuff like that. All right. So you have to be very careful how you manage your finances. And for a luxury brand, it's very difficult to even understand how the way the sector works. And what did he do? He decided that he had enough of it, and he merged both he initially he brought down the airfares of Kingfisher Airlines to compete with the likes of Jet, which had Sahara and Jetlight and Indigo and all that. So people thought that why should I? So people who are in Air Deccan, the passengers who were buying tickets of Air Deccan started going towards Kingfisher Airlines because it was offering a lot of other things in terms of bigger seat, higher seat pitch, and a whole lot of other goodies at the same level as that of an Air Deccan. He started losing out there. So then he decided that he'll merge both. Yeah, so he initially called Air Deccan as Kingfisher Red. That was another big blunder. Then he merged both of them. And then he had then he did a reverse merger in terms of going public, because at that time there was a rule that any airline which has completed 5 years can fly international routes. So he went and merged. He did a reverse merger, which allowed him to fly international routes. And international routes, when you fly, you better be very good at it, because the whole lot of other factors kick in. For example, time and all that. And British Airways, out of the blue, suddenly decided to reduce fares for India. It is British Airways which is doing it. It can take that kind of loss. But Kingfisher Airline, still a very new airline, it had bought a airline for 1,000 crores, and it had losses of around 1,000 crores. Imagine 1,000 crore loss and 1,000 crore loss. It doesn't cancel each other. It leads to 2,000 crore.
Yeah.
That's right. So what do you do with these kind of issues? So obviously, they had to withdraw the London, Bangalore, Colombo route. And they had to slowly withdraw the flights to the US. And when they started doing that, they were in big trouble. They lost a lot of money, even though the government of India came out with a one-time rejig of its finances. I mean, the government did try to do its best, but then finally the funding agencies like the banks, for example, SBI-led consortium of banks, they had to close the tap. And it had made no profit at all, so it had no money of its own. And this man had actually pledged all his individual personal shares to raise funds.
Correct.
So he was losing out on all fronts. He was losing out on MCF, he was losing out on United Breweries, United Spirits, very well run, liquor companies, and they had set new standards, and he was not able to pump in that kind of money, and he could not get out of that whirlpool.
Mm-hmm.
That led to not just the collapse of Kingfisher Airline, it led to the collapse of the entire business. Today, United Spirits is with Diageo, uh, United Breweries is with Heineken, and they are foreign companies, they are foreign multinationals who own these companies.
But now you've told, as you've said, that these are now have come under foreign companies. Has this episode actually changed the Indian industry per se?
I think it's an individual journey. After that, Jet Airways collapsed,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Along the way, the regional airlines collapsed. There are quite a few regional airlines, Big Air, for example, they all collapsed. Deccan, Captain Gopinath started something called Deccan 360, a logistic company, and he started his own regional airline called Air Deccan in, say, Ahmedabad and Orissa and all that. Again, collapsed. Deccan 360 collapsed. So there is nothing like learning lessons. It's just that you have to manage yourself. For example, SpiceJet has not done well at all, right? It's a loss making. Indigo is loss making.
Really?
Because of the pandemic. I mean, I won't say that on their own they are, but you see, the issue is not about what lessons are being learned. It's up to the government to learn these lessons. It's up to the government to see that this kind of model is not sustainable for the industry. So it has to bring in a lot of other ways, to see that it is sustainable. For that, the government should buy into this fact that yes, airline sector is very, very important for the growth of the economy. Once that thought process changes, then they will bring in a lot of other things. For example, they will see to it there is another low-cost model airport, and the ATF is lesser for them. The airport charges are lesser for them. All these things have to be done by the government of India. If they bring in that, the aviation sector will do well.
We even saw recently. Recently, we've seen Tata Sons acquiring Air India, and we've also seen the rise in number of greenfield airports, so to speak. What is your take on that? Do you think that's a wise move, or do you think that's just the beginning of something new?
So, Air India, Tata Sons got Air India on a platter. That's the good part for Tata Sons. The challenge will be how do they go ahead and utilize that opportunity and actually do a good job of Air India. What do they do with their AirAsia India? What do they do with Vistara? They themselves are not doing well. And it is good to say that I have 2 airlines in my portfolio, but what do you have to show in terms of making them viable options, right? Do you have a track record of that? What about your other Tata Sun Group companies apart from TCS? Are they doing well, right? So all this comes into play. And then you have to, the thing with the airline industry is that you have to keep on pumping in money. Your margins are 2%, 3% after 10 years. Okay, you can expect good profits only after 10 years.
So you're saying even when they come up with innovative ideas like greenfield airports or very eco-friendly airports with solar panels, etc., do you think that's just, I mean, it's just part of the game? They have to keep pumping in money and they will just take a chance and see where the whole initiative goes?
No, as I told you earlier, airports are all about management of costs. It's not just the airline which have to be low cost. Even the airports have to be low cost. They should offer low cost options to low cost airlines. If that doesn't fit in, then it is very difficult for any airline which is a low cost to do well in India. That is the truth. It's better. It's for the regulator to understand that. It's for the government of India to understand that. It's for the Ministry of Civil Aviation to understand that. You need a complete change in your mindset.
Okay.
Only then the airline sector will in India will do well.
What's the one story you've done so far for the business line that you truly, truly enjoyed working on?
Well, there are several of them, but I remember one Saturday afternoon when there wasn't much work, and we're all trying to go back to our house early, and I get a call from the Hindu resident editor in Bangalore. She tells me Hindu wants a comprehensive story on Kingfisher Airlines and Vijay Mallaya. So because I was doing the aviation sector here, and so I said, okay, fine. I dialed the, I got permission from my editors and all that, and I wrote that piece. And so I asked, what's the word length? They said, you can write as much as you want. And what happens is that I file that copy. I had at that time the current editor of BusinessLine, Raghu Srinivasan, was the business editor of Hindu, and he actually edited my copy, and he did a fantastic job. And there was Anjana Chandramouli, who had worked in the desk earlier and was part of my team in BusinessLine, and she also edited the copy, and really thankful to her for that. She no longer works for BusinessLine. So their efforts and all that, I sent in the copy, and at around 12 o'clock at midnight, they replay the copy to me, and it was fine with me. I really liked it because I had not done this long form kind of thing. And I forgot about it because I slept at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I around to get up at 8:30 Sunday morning. And there are some 20 calls and 20 messages on my mobile phone. And I was wondering, so everybody is congratulating me and all that. So I had not seen the paper at all because I was just waking up. So I was wondering, why are they congratulating me? Oh, fantastic story. So I looked through the Hindu newspaper. I didn't find the story. I looked through BusinessLine. I didn't find the story. And so I was wondering, what are they congratulating me for and all that. Then someone called up and said, yeah, see the lead story of the Hindu. So because you would never expect the Hindu to take your story as the lead on Sunday. I had conveniently forgotten to even.
So you didn't even look at page one. You just went straight to page 4 or page 5.
I looked at the business pages.
Okay.
Then I saw there, splashed across and all that. Very good headline, a very good ending and all that. It talked about. I think the last paragraph was about how the whiskey on the rocks is fine, but Kingfisher Airlines on the rocks is not.
That's a nice catchy way of
witty at the end of the day.
Very witty, in fact.
Yeah, it worked at that time. So, but it was fine, and it got it got a huge response, and later BusinessLine published the same story, and it got some real good response, and finally the internet desk had to stop the comments and all that at some point of time. But that led Penguin to call up the editor of Hindu and say that we want this person to actually write a book.
Oh, okay.
And I'm one person who would have never thought of writing any book in my life. And then I was wondering, how do I write a book? Yeah, the biggest story I've written is 450 words. So, and these guys are asking for 80,000 words. How do you write that much?
So how was it? How was it like writing a book about the whole Kingfisher episode?
So I accepted that, and I accepted. I said, "Wow, good." My friends told me, well, "Yeah, you should plunge in. You should do it," and all that. Raghu also said, "Yeah, go ahead and write it," and all that stuff. So I said, "Great, I'll do it." I took the necessary permission from my editors at that time, and then I approached Vijay Mallaya, and Vijay Mallaya, he usually doesn't call in the waking hours of a common man. He calls up at 2 o'clock in the morning. And suddenly there is a call. So that call could be because of an emergency situation at home, or it could be his call. So
Okay.
he'll call up at 2 o'clock and say, "Hi, Giri." What are you doing at 2 o'clock? So, and he'll call up and he'll say, Giri, I don't think I would want to be associated with this book because I'm writing my own. And imagine if I associate with your book, what will happen to my book? So I said, Mr. Malia, you are writing a book, I'm writing mine. How will that clash? Okay. I'm a journalist, you're a businessman, you're a big corporate kind of guy, and how? So he said, no, 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 no. Everything is done. It just needs to be rewritten and all that. So I said, you write your book, I'll write mine. How does it matter? He said, no, 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 Giri, it's not possible. And he said, if I don't accept it, none of my colleagues will also agree to go ahead and participate in your book. So I said, okay, what do I do about it? But you see, the book was not about Kingfisher Airlines. The book was about Malia. There's a difference, right?
The book yeah, exactly.
Okay. So therefore, you have to bring in United Spirits, you have to bring in United Crews, you have to bring in his father and relatives, everybody around, right? That was the bigger challenge. Because the fact that a whole lot of things have happened even before I was born. And a lot of things happened when I was in my teens. And during emergency and all those kind of stuff, right? So finally, what happened? Plus, Penguin had given me so less money that for me to travel around would have, was very difficult for me. I had to take leave. I was heading the edition in Bangalore. And therefore, for me to actually juggle around with all that was a big problem. And so they were. My mother was completely ill, and she was like just a few months away from passing away, and I had to handle that, and it was a real big challenge for me. And then how do you? A lot of action took place in Calcutta. His father is, even though he's from Karnataka, but most of his activities happened in Calcutta.
Okay.
And he did his schooling in Calcutta. His mother was a Mysorean settled down in Calcutta.
Oh, okay.
All those things are happening, and a bit of Bombay and all that. For you to spend a lot of time in Calcutta and in Bombay involved a lot of money. Right? You have to pay from your own pocket. Okay, that is a big thing. So, and then how do you take leave here? Because that would mean you had to have somebody else handling the bureau, right? That was not possible either. So I managed it. I called up people I looked at all the old newspapers, Telegraph, Statesman, and finding a source is fine. You have those newspapers and all that. At the same time, you have to see that it is authenticated by others.
Correct.
So that was a problem. A lot of them would not speak. Like they'll say, okay, fine, I'll meet you at 4 o'clock at Cafe Coffee Day, and you land up there and they are not there. Somebody has tipped them off. And there are funny things, like there was this character called Mr. Talwar who was very big in the UB group. And I somehow managed to get his number, and I spoke to him and said, sir, I want to speak to you about this. I'm writing this book. Then he said, I'm sorry, Giri, I can't tell you anything about it. Okay? And he was like one key person out there. Okay, he had seen the transition from Vijay Mallaya's father, to Vijay Mallaya, right? Now, what do? Then I tried to convince him. But the funny part of that entire exchange was, he kept denying that he will speak to me, but spoke to me for 2 hours. Okay.
How did that happen?
He kept telling me a whole lot of information. I said, no, I don't want to speak to you. I don't want to speak to you.
Oh, so he denied but he was speaking at the same time. Okay.
So I didn't stop him from
Why would you? You need the
saying
information.
that,
Why would you?
as long as you give me information.
So although it's actually
Then there were other sources whom I would refer as deep throat. Part of the, I took that from the American scandal, Watergate scandal that happened. There was a deep throat who helped these two journalists, right? So they were deep throats as well. They helped me a lot. They whatever information I got, I called them up and tried to see that they're exactly right and all that. There are a lot of people in Kingfish Airlines who helped me a lot, and they were so everybody knew I was writing this book, but at the same time a bit cagey about disclosing their identities. That was fine with me. It was a struggle, and it was one of the first non-fiction books to come out on the corporate sector. And so that way it helped me because the people who actually read the book, I think they were very nice to me because they must have realized that there was a lot of curiosity around that. So a whole lot of blunders, mistakes, whatever that happened in that book was overlooked to a large extent.
Okay.
I got some very good reviews and all that. And it opened up a new kind of thing. I used to be seen as an expert on Vijay Mallaya. So whatever that was happening on Vijay Mallaya, television channels would invite me and be part of the debate and all that. So that really opened up those kind of opportunities for me as well. So I really enjoyed that journey, but at the same time, a bit overwhelming. I've never had done this before. But I must also admit there were journalists who had a better knowledge about the industry and about Vijay Mallaya than I did. But I was just fortunate enough to get this just because of that article that I wrote.
Giriprakash, last but not the least, what is it that you'd like to say now that you're going to be coming to the end of your innings with BusinessLine? What's the one thing that you would like to tell aspiring journalists in the days ahead, especially with a lot of digital technology coming in play and the game literally changing rapidly?
What would you like to say? Yeah, this is a challenge that I face. So I'd just like to narrate a bit of what I have gone through. So whether there are any takeaways, it's for the aspiring journalists to understand. What I know is that not just in journalism, but in any other profession, your fundamentals should be very strong. All right. You should do your homework. And I try to do that as much as possible. So I assume if your fundamentals are strong, you've done your homework well, you're already halfway through. What you're telling the person whom you're interviewing, or when you're writing a story or a book or whatever it is, that person actually realizes that he's speaking to somebody who has knowledge about his domain. Then there is a confidence kind of that build up happens. When that happens, that the other person actually opens out because he realizes that it will not get misinterpreted. So what is the biggest fear that the person whom you're interviewing faces? He has this big doubt whether the person whom I'm talking to understands the issue at all or not. He realizes the several challenges that come with it. Once he's at that comfortable zone, saying that yes, I am speaking to someone who understands the subject well, he will open up, and that will lead to a far better interaction.
Correct.
Okay, most of the interactions happens in two ways. One is off the record, and another is on the record. But at the same time, the off the record conversation that happens is more.
Correct.
And he will open up only when he knows that the other person whom I'm talking to, the journalist whom I'm talking to, understands the subject. So that's what I have learned over the years. If there's a takeaway in that, great.
So do you think that digital media has sort of changed the way in which storytelling is done?
Yeah, I mean, you have to do everything fast. You have to compete with the rest of the competition and all that stuff. You have far less time to assimilate, right? To understand the issue. So you need to do your hard work.
So the homework is still the key to
Still the key to it, because journalism is all about next morning or on digital media. You get to know how good you are.
Yeah. It's you are your best judge in this case.
You to the next, I mean, I'm talking of the print industry. The next morning, it tells you how good you are. There's competition, your editor, yourself. If you have committed a blunder, yeah, egg on your face. That's it. And the most unfortunate thing is you can't build on your success. Your second story has to be equally good or better.
So there's always room for better.
So you have to be good all the time. And that's a big challenge every journalist faces.
Thank you, Giriprakash, for joining us today. It's a real pleasure and wishing you all the very best for your future.
Sure. Thank you very much.